Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to be diving deep into something you've probably seen a ton of times
Oh, yeah.
in art and different types of media, but might not even know it has a name.
Right.
It's called the Ricken figure,
Ah, interesting.
and it basically just means back figure.
Okay.
So, like when you're looking at a painting or watching a movie
Yeah.
or even playing a video game, and there's that character
Uh-huh.
with their back to us.
I get it.
That's it. The Ricken figure.
Okay.
And you sent us a whole bunch of research on this, so clearly you all are pretty intrigued by this. And trust me,
Yeah.
you're going to want to stick around for this deep dive.
I'm excited.
So what I'm really interested in is,
come on.
like, what makes this so fascinating? Like, why do we even care about this?
Well, I think what's really cool about the Rookin figure is how it draws the viewer right into the story.
Okay.
It's not just like you're sitting there passively watching something happen.
Right.
It's like you're almost stepping into the shoes of that figure. You can kind of feel what they might be feeling and see in the world from their point of view.
Okay, so that's interesting.
Yeah.
So our deep dive materials here trace this whole Ricken figure thing back to the Romantics in 19th century Germany.
Yeah.
We're talking landscape paintings, lots of emotion, all that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah, the classic.
Almost cliche, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah, it can be.
But was there more to it than just like a passing artistic fad? Like, was it more than just a trend?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
It was definitely way more than just a trend.
Interesting.
Think about the time period.
Yeah.
The Industrial Revolution was happening. Reason and logic were taking over everything.
Mhm.
And the Romantics were kind of like, hold on a sec.
Yeah.
There's got to be something more than this.
Yeah.
They were really emphasizing feelings and intuition and the power of nature.
I see.
So it was a reaction to that whole, like, overly rational kind of vibe.
So the Ricken figure, it sounds like, wasn't just about pretty landscapes then.
Well, no.
No, it was almost like a statement.
Exactly. It was totally a statement.
Oh, wow.
It was like saying, hey, there's a whole lot more to life than just what we can see and measure.
Uh-huh.
That figure standing there with their back turned,
Yeah.
contemplate this massive landscape. It symbolized that, like, yearning for something beyond just the everyday.
I can see that. That makes a lot of sense. And what always gets me about this whole technique,
Yeah.
it's the hidden face.
Mm-hmm.
You would think that seeing the character's expression
Right.
would give you more information, like more insight into the story.
Yeah, you'd think so.
But it's almost the opposite.
Really is.
It's like it's more powerful because you don't see their face.
It's kind of paradoxical, isn't it?
Yeah.
By not showing the face the artist actually gives you, the viewer, so much more freedom.
Mm-hmm.
You get to project your own feelings onto the figure.
Okay.
It almost becomes a mirror
Wow.
to your own emotional state and how you interpret what's happening.
I can see that, yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's so true. It's like those, open-ended questions you always get in like a literature class
Right.
where the teacher's like, what do you think the character's feeling?
Exactly.
And you have to like come up with your own answer.
Yeah, you can't just be passive.
Yeah. It forces you to become a part of the creative process, right?
Totally.
Not just a passive observer.
You got it.
And what's really amazing to me is that this Ricken figure thing,
Yeah.
it hasn't just stayed in like stuffy old paintings.
I know, right?
It's like everywhere now.
It's everywhere.
It's in movies, it's in photography, it's even in those fancy video games that you're always talking about.
Oh, I know, it's true. It's not just an art history thing anymore.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
So give me an example. Like, what's a good example of this in, like, a modern movie or something?
There's so many good ones.
Okay.
Okay, remember that scene from The Graduate
Uh-huh.
where Benjamin is just standing there with his back to the camera,
Yeah.
looking out at the pool? I think so, yeah.
That's like a classic Rookin figure.
Okay.
And it just creates this sense of alienation and uncertainty.
Oh, yeah. That shot always stuck with me.
It's so good.
You instantly feel how lost he is, and
Yeah.
it's like, what's going on in his head?
Right. You have no idea.
Yeah, you're just left wondering.
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
Because it allows for, like, so many different interpretations.
Okay.
Is he feeling trapped? Is there, like, a sense of hope? Is he regretful?
Uh-huh.
It all depends on the viewer and what they bring to it, their own experiences.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
But, and this is where I think things get even more interesting.
Yeah.
The research that you sent also pointed out that this technique, it can be kind of tricky.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of like a double-edged sword
It is.
because it can reinforce stereotypes.
Right.
Especially when it comes to showing people from different backgrounds.
You're totally right.
And it made me think about that a lot.
Yeah. It's something to be really aware of. If all you see is a back. It's so easy to just like make assumptions about somebody
Yeah.
based on their clothes or, what you think their race or gender might be.
Uh-huh.
And instead of seeing them as like a unique individual,
Yeah.
they just become like a representative of some category.
Right. And that's not what we want.
Exactly. It oversimplifies things.
Yeah. And this brings up a really important point,
Mhm.
which is, who gets to be the figure in the foreground?
Right.
Like, whose story are we invited to share?
Exactly.
And then who's left in the background?
Yeah, literally and figuratively.
Literally and figuratively, yeah.
It's a big question.
Yeah.
It's something that artists and filmmakers really need to think about.
Yeah.
The Rickon figure can be so powerful,
Uh-huh.
but you got to be aware of the potential problems
Right.
and really strive for portrayals that are, both nuanced and respectful.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And, speaking of how easily we make assumptions, the rise of social media adds like a whole nother layer to this discussion.
Oh, for sure.
Because we're always curating our online identities now, showing like our best selves.
Right. It's all about the image.
To the whole world, yeah.
Yeah, it's a highlight reel.
So has the Rickon figure become like a tool for navigating that world? Like, is it different on social media?
I think it definitely has.
Okay.
Think about like Instagram influencers, for example.
Yeah.
They use the Rickon figure all the time
Okay.
to create that sense of mystery and allure.
Oh, yeah.
Like they're inviting you into their world,
Uh-huh.
but at the same time, they're maintaining a certain distance.
Have you noticed any specific ways that they use it on social media?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Like, is there a certain pose or a style that's become like the influencer Rickon figure? You're so right. There totally are.
Okay, like what?
Well, one that's super popular is like the Wanderlust Rickon figure.
Okay.
It's usually someone gazing out at this like incredible landscape or some exotic location.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about selling an aspirational lifestyle.
Yeah.
Like you could have this amazing life too
Uh-huh.
if you just follow me.
Oh, interesting.
It's brilliant marketing.
Yeah.
Real.
It's like they're saying, look at this incredible life I'm living,
Right.
but you can only see a glimpse of it.
But you got to follow me to see more.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's smart.
It's a carefully constructed image
Okay.
designed to really like intrigue people and make them want more.
That's really cool. What else? What are some other ones?
Another one that's super popular is the fashion-forward Rickon figure,
Okay.
where it's all about showing off a trendy outfit
Uh-huh.
or like a cool accessory.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So the person's back is turned,
Yeah.
and that draws all the attention to what they're wearing,
Okay.
and it
Yeah.
creates that sense of exclusivity.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like saying, I'm setting the trends,
Mm-hmm.
and you can follow me to stay ahead of the curve.
That's really cool.
Right.
It's fascinating how something as simple as turning your back to the camera
I know, right?
can be so loaded with meaning,
It's wild.
especially in the age of social media.
It really shows how visual language has evolved,
Yeah.
and how we're always finding new ways to communicate
Yeah.
and connect through pictures.
That's really cool.
And, speaking of these kind of like hidden stories,
Yeah.
another interesting thing that popped up in your research was the use of flashbacks
Okay.
in stories that feature the Rickon figure.
Yeah, that was something I hadn't really considered before.
Yeah, it's cool, right?
Yeah.
Like, how does showing glimpses of the past
Uh-huh.
impact how we see the character in the present moment?
It adds like a whole new dimension, doesn't it?
It totally does.
Yeah, like imagine you see this figure
Hmm.
and their back is turned and they seem lost in thought.
Uh-huh.
And then suddenly you get these flashbacks
Yes.
to key moments in their life.
Right.
Like maybe a childhood memory or a painful breakup or even like a big moment of triumph.
Exactly.
And then suddenly that image of their back,
Yeah.
it's like it becomes so much heavier.
I know. It's like it's carrying the weight of their whole history.
Yeah.
It's so powerful.
It really is.
It's like we're trying to put together a puzzle,
Uh-huh.
trying to figure out what led them to this exact moment.
And those flashbacks often reveal like the unseen forces that
Yeah.
have shaped their perspective. Really.
Totally. You get to see all the things that led up to this.
Yeah.
It gives you so much more context.
Yeah.
It makes you realize that you're not just looking at like a static picture. You're
Yep.
looking at a person,
Mm-hmm.
a complex individual with a past, a present, and a future that's still unfolding.
This has already given me a whole new perspective on how I look at stories.
I know. It's so cool.
It's amazing how much depth there is
Mm,
to something that seems so simple at first.
totally. It's all about those layers.
Yeah.
It's mind-blowing. Yeah, it really
When you
is.
start to think about it, it's
Yeah.
like, whoa.
I never would have thought about it that way before.
I know, right?
Yeah,
But once you see it, you can't unsee it
totally. It's everywhere.
everywhere you look.
It changes the way you look at everything.
Exactly. It's like a whole new lens.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I love it.
Me too. It's really cool.
I'm glad we're doing this deep dive.
Yeah, me too. It's really interesting.
I'm learning a lot,
Me too.
even though I thought I knew a lot about this already.
I know, right?
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's great.
I'm excited to see where this conversation goes.
Yeah, me too.
Let's keep talking about it.
Sounds good to me.
All right, awesome.
Okay.
So what else is in these materials? What other kind of like rabbit holes can we go down?
Let's see. Where should we go next?
This is going to be fun.
Yeah, this is great.
All right, well, let's take a quick break, and then we'll be right back
Sounds good.
with more of our deep dive into the Rooken figure. Can't wait. It's really fascinating how the Rooken figure can basically sum up a whole life story, right?
Yeah.
Just in a single image.
Yeah, it's wild.
And, this idea of like unseen forces shaping someone's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
It really made me think about some of the other stuff you sent over.
You're talking about the articles on streaming and like immersive experiences.
Exactly.
I'm curious, how does that tie back to what we've been saying about the Rooken figure? Like, what's the connection?
Well, think about it this way.
Okay.
Immersive media, whether it's a video game or some crazy multi-platform story,
Yeah.
it's trying to pull you into a world,
Okay.
just like the Rooken figure does.
I see.
But instead of just one image,
Yeah, yeah.
you're surrounded by sights and sounds,
Okay.
maybe even choices you have to make.
So it's like the Rooken figure on steroids.
Yeah,
Kind of like way more sensory input,
definitely.
but is the goal the same? To make you feel like you're part of the story?
That's exactly it.
Oh.
And the case studies you sent actually suggest that this whole, like, push for immersion,
Yeah.
it's changed how stories are even told.
Mm.
It's not just about a beginning, middle, and end anymore.
Right.
It's about creating a world that's so rich and detailed
Yeah.
that you can totally lose yourself in it.
I see what you mean, yeah.
It's a different kind of storytelling.
And you were saying how those details, like the setting, the characters, even the music, it all matters.
It does.
It all plays a role in how we understand the story.
Right. It's like they're working together to create a specific reality.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's like building a house brick by brick.
Okay.
Each element contributes to the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
The structure and the meaning.
Yeah.
And this level of detail can encourage people to like really dig deep.
Yeah.
To explore different parts of the story on different platforms.
You've seen that?
Have you?
Yeah.
Cool, right?
Yeah.
It's like, it's not just watching a movie anymore.
Right.
It's reading the tie-in novel, checking out the online forums,
Yeah.
maybe even going to an exhibition.
That's crazy.
Like a giant puzzle
Yeah.
waiting to be put together.
What's really interesting to me is how this like participatory element,
Yeah.
it can actually affect how we judge a story.
Oh, for sure.
Like how authentic it feels.
Right. The more invested we get,
Uh-huh.
the more likely we are to believe in the world that's being presented,
Okay.
even if it's completely made up.
But doesn't that raise some red flags?
It can.
Like if we're so caught up in the experience,
Yeah.
how do we even know we're not being manipulated?
That's a good question.
Like, is there a point where it's too much?
One of the articles you sent,
Yeah.
it actually talks about that,
Okay.
about how these lines are getting blurred
Yeah.
between what's real and what's not.
Yeah. It's kind of scary.
Yeah, it can be a little creepy.
Yeah.
The idea is that the more immersive something gets,
Yeah.
the harder it is to tell the difference
Yeah.
between what's actually real and what's just part of the story.
So it's like we willingly suspend our disbelief to the point where we might just lose sight of what's actually going on.
You got it.
Wow. That's deep.
Yeah. Something to think about.
Yeah, it is.
And this can get especially tricky
Okay.
when it comes to how different groups of people are represented,
Okay.
in immersive media.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Remember our conversation about the Rooken figure
Mm-hmm.
and how it can reinforce stereotypes?
Mm-hmm.
Well, those same concerns apply here,
Okay.
but on an even bigger scale.
You're saying that with all this information in detail, it becomes even easier to present like a biased view
It does.
or an oversimplified view of a culture or a community.
Yeah, it's easier to control the narrative.
Yeah, that's scary.
It is. It's a lot of power.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important to use it responsibly.
It's not just about checking a box for diversity.
No, not at all.
It's about making sure that those voices and those perspectives are really authentically represented.
You nailed it.
And it's about recognizing the power that these experiences have
Yeah.
to shape how we understand the world.
It can be tools for empathy and education,
Right?
but they can also be used to mislead people.
Yeah, that's true.
It all comes down to the intentions of the creators.
This whole discussion about immersion and representation,
Yeah.
it makes me think about how film,
Wow.
especially film,
Yeah, it's so powerful.
shape our perception of reality.
Absolutely. Film isn't just entertainment.
Right.
It's a powerful medium
Yeah.
that can influence how we see ourselves and others.
Yeah, I agree.
And the decisions filmmakers make,
Mm-hmm.
from cast-in to cinematography,
Yeah.
they all play a role in shaping that perception.
So it's not just about what's on the screen.
No.
It's about how it's presented.
Right.
And who's telling the story.
Exactly.
And one of the sources you sent me actually had a whole framework
Oh, cool.
for analyzing those choices.
Yeah.
And their impact.
Interesting. I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, so would I.
Okay, what kind of framework are we talking about?
Well, it emphasized looking at the film's internal elements first,
Okay.
like the plot, the characters, the dialogue,
Mhm.
before jumping to external stuff,
Yeah.
like the director's background or the historical context.
Makes sense.
It's like saying, let's look at what's actually happening in the movie
Yeah.
before we try to read too much into it.
I like that. It keeps things grounded.
Yeah,
It encourages you to really pay attention
yeah.
to what's right there in front of you.
Another key principle was to approach elements of the film as questions
I mean,
instead of definitive statements.
So, like, instead of saying, this is what this means,
Right.
you ask, what could this mean?
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah.
It opens up so many possibilities.
Can you give me an example?
Sure.
Like, how would you apply that?
Let's say there's a movie
Okay.
and it portrays a character from a certain culture
Okay.
in a specific way.
Yeah.
Instead of just accepting that portrayal as like the truth,
Uh-huh.
we should ask ourselves, how does this fit into existing stereotypes?
Okay.
Or does this challenge those stereotypes?
Right.
Is this a nuanced representation?
Yeah.
Or is it relying on cliches?
Okay.
It's all about asking those questions.
So basically, be an active viewer.
Yes.
Don't just passively accept what you're seeing.
Engage with it.
Critically. And the last thing this framework emphasized was how cinema can challenge those traditional narratives.
Oh, that's so important.
Like, does it go against genre conventions?
Yeah. Does it flip the script?
Does it present a new perspective?
Right. Does it make you think differently?
Does it push boundaries in terms of storytelling?
I love that. It's all about innovation
Yeah.
and pushing the limits.
So it's recognizing the potential for film to be more than just entertainment.
Exactly.
It can be a way to comment on society,
Uh-huh.
challenge the way things are.
And start important conversations.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I love that. Yeah, I do too.
Film has so much power.
It really does.
And that brings us right back to this whole idea of representation.
Okay.
Because how a film shows different groups,
Yeah.
it can have a huge impact
Uh-huh.
on how those groups are seen and understood
Right.
by the audience.
Especially when it comes to marginalized communities.
Oh, yeah.
Communities that have historically been misrepresented
Mhm.
or even completely left out.
Of mainstream media.
Yeah, that's so
It
important.
is. It's about giving everyone a voice.
And one of the sources you shared actually looked at how Black representation has changed on TV.
Oh, that's a great example.
Yeah, and it highlighted both the progress that's been made,
Yeah.
but also the challenges that still exist.
It's a complex issue.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of progress,
Uh-huh.
but there's still a long way to go. It's
Thanks.
important to acknowledge both.
I'm familiar with the argument that early representations of Black characters
Yeah.
often relied on harmful stereotypes. Right, they reinforced negative perceptions
Yeah.
and limited the kinds of roles that Black actors could even get.
Yeah. It's sad.
It is. It's a sad part of history.
And even though things have shifted,
Mm-hmm.
those early portrayals still have an impact today.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a legacy that's hard to shake off.
It's like a shadow that still lingers.
Yeah.
Even though we've come so far,
Yeah.
those images and those ideas, they're still out there.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And they can continue to affect how Black characters are seen and written.
The article mentioned the trend toward more diverse casts
Mhm.
in the 80s and 90s, like
Yeah.
more multiracial ensembles as a step towards greater inclusivity.
Yeah, it felt like a big step at the time.
But even that approach has been criticized
Oh, yeah,
for not going far enough.
definitely.
Why is that?
Well, while those shows might have looked more diverse on the surface,
Okay.
they often didn't really address any serious issues
Okay.
related to race and inequality.
Okay.
It was a kind of diversity that felt safe,
Okay. Right.
for mainstream audiences.
It's like saying, we're all just people.
Right.
Let's not talk about the messy stuff.
Let's just pretend everything's fine.
But ignoring those differences doesn't make them disappear.
It can actually make things worse
Okay.
because it creates this kind of color blindness
I see.
that erases the unique experiences of people of color.
Right. It pretends that everyone's the same.
And that's just not true.
Yeah, we're all different.
We are, and that's something to celebrate,
Yeah.
not something to shy away from.
So what are some of the key takeaways from all of this?
That's a great question.
Like, where are we now and where do we need to go?
I think the biggest lesson here
Yeah.
is that representation isn't just about numbers.
Sure.
It's about quality.
Mm-hmm.
It's about depth.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about authenticity.
Yeah.
It's about making sure that diverse voices are not only included,
Yeah.
but that they're given the space and the power to tell their own stories.
It's about moving beyond tokenism and stereotypes to create portrayals that are both nuanced and empowering.
Exactly.
And recognizing that representation.
Mm-hmm.
It's a process.
It is. It's ongoing.
It's something we have to keep working at.
It's a constant push for greater inclusivity
Mm-hmm.
and understanding.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a journey, not a destination.
Speaking of understanding,
Mm-hmm.
I kind of want to circle back to this whole idea of immersion.
Okay.
Because while we talked about the downsides, there's no denying that a really immersive experience,
Yeah.
it can be really powerful.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
Like really moving.
When it's done well,
Yeah.
immersive media can transport us.
Huh?
It can help us develop empathy.
Mm-hmm.
And it can even inspire us to take action in the real world.
One of the articles you sent actually talked about that.
Oh, yeah. Which one?
It explored the art of captivating an audience.
Okay.
What makes a story truly engrossing.
That's so important.
Yeah.
You got to hook people.
Right.
Otherwise, they'll just tune out.
Right.
It's all about making them care.
The article emphasized how important it is to create a world that feels believable, even if it's made up or set in a different time.
Right. You got to suspend disbelief.
Yeah.
It's about drawing the audience in, making them feel like they're right there in the middle of it all.
And that's where details really come in, right?
Oh, yeah. The details are everything.
The setting, the costumes, the way the characters interact.
It all adds up.
It creates this sense of realism.
It's like world building.
Yeah.
You got to make it feel real.
And like we saw with the Rickon figure,
Yeah.
those details can also be super subtle
Right.
and symbolic. They can add layers of meaning
They do.
that make the audience think more deeply.
It's about engaging on multiple levels, you know.
Yeah, it's not just about entertainment.
It's about making people think
Yeah.
and feel.
The article also mentioned conflict and tension as being super important for moving the story forward.
Oh, yeah, that's key.
It's what keeps us hooked.
Conflict is the heart of drama.
Yeah.
It's what makes us care about the characters
Right.
and their struggles.
Yeah, like will they overcome the obstacle?
Exactly.
It makes us invested in the outcome.
And how that conflict is resolved,
Yeah.
whether it's a happy ending or a tragic one, it can really affect the audience.
It can make us think differently, challenge what we believe,
Yeah.
maybe even inspire us to change our own lives.
It's about leaving people with something to ponder,
Yeah.
a feeling that stays with them long after the story's over.
Wow. That's powerful.
It is. It's the magic of storytelling.
This deep dive has been incredible, honestly.
I know, right? We've covered so much ground.
Yeah, from the Rickon figure in paintings to social media and immersive experiences.
And representation.
Yeah.
It's all connected.
Yeah. It's crazy how much this one technique can reveal about the way we see the world.
It's a window into our souls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really
I'll
is.
say amazing.
I feel like I'm seeing things with new eyes.
I'm glad. I feel the same way.
It's been awesome talking about this with you.
Likewise, it's been a pleasure.
And I hope our listener is finding this as thought-provoking as we are.
Me too. I hope they're enjoying the ride.
It's funny, you know, we've been talking about how immersive experiences can kind of blur those lines
Yeah?
between fiction and reality.
Uh-huh.
But isn't there something kind of ironic about that?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, the Rickon figure,
Yeah.
it's all about what we don't see.
Right.
It leaves so much up to our imaginations. It's
Right.
almost like the opposite of all this hyper-realism
Oh, yeah.
and information overload that we're always talking about.
Interesting. I like that.
It's like a reminder that sometimes the most powerful stories
Yeah.
are the ones that leave space for us to think,
I see what you're saying.
to interpret, to fill in the gaps with our own experiences.
Yeah.
It's like a conversation almost
Okay.
between the artist and the viewer.
I get it.
The artist gives you the framework, the starting point,
Uh-huh.
and then it's up to you to complete the picture.
That's cool.
And I think that's what makes the Rooken figure so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
It's a technique that works no matter what time period you're in,
Right.
no matter what kind of technology you're using.
Yeah, it's timeless.
Because it taps into something really fundamental about how we connect with stories.
Thinking back to all that stuff about social media,
Uh-huh.
I feel like there's this tension
Okay.
between wanting to be totally immersed in a story
Yeah.
and how those platforms can also make us feel kind of isolated.
It's like a paradox.
It is.
You're connected to everyone,
Yeah.
but you're also kind of alone.
On the one hand, social media gives you this crazy access
Mm-hmm.
to information and experiences.
Uh-huh.
You can connect with people all over the world.
Yeah.
You can explore different cultures. You can lose yourself in stories that you love.
Yeah, it's amazing.
But then there's the other side.
Yeah, the echo chambers,
Exactly.
the curated feeds,
Yeah.
that pressure to present a perfect image.
Like you're surrounded by noise,
Yeah.
but you still feel disconnected.
And that's where I think the Rooken figure can teach us something.
What do you mean?
Well, it reminds us that
Sure.
there's beauty in simplicity.
In what we don't see,
Yeah.
in the space between the words.
It's about finding those quiet moments
Mm-hmm.
where you can step back from the constant stream of information
Yeah, take a breath.
and just connect with your own thoughts and feelings.
That's such an important message.
Yeah, it is.
Especially in today's world.
Yeah.
The Rooken figure is like a reminder to slow down,
Uh-huh.
to look inward,
Mm-hmm.
to appreciate the mystery of it all.
To turn our backs on the noise
Yeah.
and reconnect with what really matters.
Beautifully said.
And it brings us back to that idea you mentioned earlier about the Rooken figure as a metaphor for the human condition.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It's like we're all on this journey
Uh-huh.
moving forward into the unknown.
Our past shaping us,
Yeah.
but never fully visible.
It's like we're all a Rooken figure in a way.
I like that. That's really cool.
Yeah, it is.
And the best part is that it acknowledges both the uncertainty
yeah.
and the potential of that journey.
We don't know what's going to happen next.
Right.
But we carry with us all those experiences,
Yeah.
those relationships, those moments that have made us who we are.
It's a reminder that there's always more to the story,
Yeah.
both for the figures we encounter in art
Hmm.
and for ourselves.
It's like an invitation to be curious,
Yeah.
to be empathetic,
Mm-hmm.
to embrace the unknown.
It's a beautiful way to look at it.
This has been an incredible deep dive.
It really has.
From the origins of the Rooken figure in romantic painting
Mm-hmm.
to social media, immersive experiences, representation.
It's amazing how much this one simple technique
Yeah.
can teach us.
It's changed how I see the world, honestly.
I'm so glad to hear that.
And I hope our listener feels the same way.
Me too. It's been a pleasure sharing this journey with you both.
So next time you see a figure with their back turned, whether it's in a painting or a movie or a video game, or even just someone walking down the street,
Okay.
take a moment to think about their story.
What are they looking at?
Yeah, what are they feeling?
What brought them to this point?
Let that image remind you
Okay.
of all the unseen forces that shape our lives,
Mm-hmm.
the power of perspective.
And the infinite possibilities that lie ahead
Keep those insights in mind as you keep exploring the world.
of art and storytelling.
Until next time.